All right. So, yeah, we have a couple things on the agenda, but I figure, jump in and check out, start there, and we'll work our way out from that point. I know we have stuff like the receipt stuff, and I mean, Wooter, I think in the chat expressed interest in sharing opinions, and he said he'd maybe be here later. So I guess we can address that like later in the chat. But yeah, best place is probably just to start with where things are at. On the checkout side of things.
Yeah, all right. Give me a second. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, yeah. During the last days, I made some very good progress, and I think I'm mostly done with the stuff we discussed in the issue and yeah, other points that were still open, for instance, switching or, for instance, not showing Bitcoin and Lightning as payment methods, if those are the only ones, and the this fallback BIP21 setting is activated. So this is what I just did. I'll reload the screen, and those two payment methods should not be shown anymore. And the QR code here is already the BIP21 one.
Holy fuck! This is insane.
Yeah,
this is insane, man.
Yeah,
great work.
Yeah, we still need to discuss the implementation, and I have well, the our dog is going mad. I hope you can't hear him that much. Nevertheless, there are a lot of changes in this PR, and for instance, this thing and the implementation and so on. Those need to be discussed. We need some proper review for this PR. Nevertheless, by now I have the feeling that the basics are in place, and we can start to review this and discuss things on a more detailed level. I think I'm pretty sure that everything that's on this page or the changes I did won't affect the existing checkout version. So there are a few things that we share technically, like the view model and the controller part. Nevertheless, everything in the view is, I think, neatly separated, and so this way we shouldn't break the existing checkout or even affect it. The only thing that we might need to do for some of the other changes that that Dstruk mentioned, they are wording related, and for now I didn't touch that part. I just added some translations, but I didn't change the existing language files. And the reason for that is that we have very extensive translations, but if for whatever we change with the new checkout, we need to basically replace those existing translations or come up with new ones. And I think this would be a major hurdle to maybe ship the new version, because it'll take some time to get them in place.
Yeah, that's a valid point. That is a really valid point. Yeah, I tend to agree if that's something, because we could do that in parallel. And it's mostly an aesthetic reason, and I just think in general, just trying to be more succinct with our language for some of these things. But I agree. I don't think that's worth delaying, getting feedback, because we can try to work on that in parallel, and we can be a little bit more rigorous, because I think wording and just general things like that are always a bit of a challenge anyway, trying to upkeep and deal with that sort of thing. Because I know that there are other places in the app too where we've talked about improving wording, and we have that old PR that I worked on, which like explained features and things like that that also needed wording changes and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely an area that I'm realizing that we probably need to get a little bit better in how we deal with that kind of thing. No, that's a really good call out.
So for so the translations, and I think this point here are the only things from your feedback I didn't address. I looked into addressing this one, so changing the format, but this formatter is also used in several other places, and I didn't want to touch it or change it because it felt like this is also a minor thing, and we can live with the formatting here not being optimal or potentially containing more information than necessary. Nevertheless, I didn't want to touch these kinds of things because they affect other parts of the app, and this PR is already large enough, so I didn't want to
dude, Dennis, this looks fucking insane, dude. You've been so hard at work. Holy shit.
Thanks. I'm also excited to get this out because I also talked to Nicholas about the cleanups we can do once we eliminate the old checkout version, and I think I'm looking forward to get to those changes even more than the initial redesign.
I second Boz's comments. It's really coming together amazingly. And as for the 2 points that you addressed, that's fair. Like those are a lot of that kind of stuff. I see it, and it's like I don't know. Obviously, I'm not privy to where it touches everything in the code, and I definitely defer to you on all those kind of things. Where it's like if it's out of scope or it's challenging or whatever, that's a very, very minor change in both of those instances, and definitely something that it's like I imagine with all of this there's going to be a laundry list of things that would be like nice to haves or minor tweaks or adjustments or cleanup or whatever, but it's absolutely not essential and makes very little difference, because the only other things that I'm seeing in my head that have come up that I guess are probably worth discussing here, because I've been working on trying to figure out how to incorporate the information bit, the countdown or timer a little bit more, and I've got some mocks for those, but I'm kind of working through all of it at once because I'd rather make sure that it all looks good. And even for some of the information and timer stuff, it's like there's a bit of overlap, and I'm wondering if it might make sense to separate those two a bit more. And then I owe you an asset for the arrow, which I have, and just a few other little details that I'm going to post in the PR that I've been working through this week. So
let me just say a few more things because they just got to my mind. So the PR doesn't just contain changes that are about this page, but also for everything that's related to this new and separate checkout version. So, for instance, a bigger part of the PR is also API changes and changes to various view models, like the point of sale, for instance, because once you enable this checkbox here, we will start to offer the option to request customer data differently than it was before with the requires a refund email setting. So this needed to be incorporated into other views as well. For instance, once you create an invoice, you also had the option to change the setting just for this particular invoice. So this also needed to be toggled on this page. So for instance, if the new checkout is enabled for this store, you will see this setting instead of the one you see once you disable the checkout or the new checkout or don't opt into it, because then it'll just display things like they were before. And it's the same for the POS app as well. So like here's this setting for the refund email, and once I enable the new checkout and say we want to have the full shipping address for instance, then I should see this here as an option. And the new checkout will work with both versions. So I haven't done this yet because we need to get to the forms integration. Nevertheless, if you display an invoice with the old setting, you will here see this this email form like it was before. And if you have the new forms feature enabled, then it'll show the form for whatever info you request. So this is also a bigger part of the PR. And like I said, it's large already, and I didn't want to grow it more than necessary. So I left out a few things that I considered minor, and we can get to them in a separate PR, which will make it easier to review because it's not just a whole bunch of changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% support that because that it just doesn't make sense for something like get the foundation and we'll tweak and do all that later.
So in general, I'd say technically this one is ready for review so that Cooks and Nicholas can take a look, and we can start to discuss technical things before we do the form integration. But because this will also be a bigger change as well, and like we did with the recent redesigns, I assume this will be a set of PRs where we, of course, will have a second part and maybe even a third part to it. But most of the work has been done, and I think even the form integration will not be a big amount of work. But I'd be happy if this would receive a review during the next days, and we can split it into more than just one PR.
Yeah, I mean, for my end, I support that. Certainly from just minor things, because there's more things that we can do. As I've mentioned to you in our last time we chatted, that visual tweaks and little minor adjustments and things like that. You and I will keep kind of pushing forward. And I think a second follow-up PR makes sense once all this gets approved. I mean, and there's and I guess even for additional stuff, it's like the NFC stuff and a few things. I think that let's see,
before we go into NFCs, can I ask a simple question? I guess what happened with the timer?
The timer will only be shown in case there's I think the last 25% of the time left. So it's not shown initially. So that I think the idea is that we don't give the user the impression that he needs to rush or something like that.
For sure. Yeah. I just was curious, at what percentage will it be shown and what changed there. But I'll have some tests tomorrow, and then provide maybe some better feedback. The only thing that maybe I would also add is consider adding a copy icon next to the Bitcoin amount to make it, I guess, I'm not sure. I've just noticed lots of these. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, in general, you can copy almost everything here just by clicking on it. Of course, this isn't very intuitive. Nevertheless, the functionality is already there, and yeah.
Okay. I just have a concern. If people will know that, I guess the text says this to them, that they can copy the address when they click on it. Sure, but also like the amount. But I guess most of them will just highlight the amount and then copy it. I guess I'm not really sure.
Yeah. In general, I think there are multiple things we still need to discuss and improve, but as I said, I'd be happy if we can review and merge the current state so that we can iterate.
Yes, I agree. This is quite a lot of already abstracting all these crazy complexities. Like, I cannot believe that you guys have managed to put it as simple as it is now. So really, really awesome work to both of you on this one.
Yay!
Cheers. And yeah, Paul, I'm with you. Don't worry. Like that's got. And I have the same feeling when I look at things. I'm like, we can improve this, we can improve that, we can delineate that, we can improve, the blah 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 here, visually and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think in a future call we can sit and scrutinize and on that kind of follow up visual PR we can be really really particular, because we could add icons to the stuff in the view details, and it might make sense to even add it to the amount as well. But I'm with you, and don't worry.
Yeah, recently I also had a friend who actually tried to tap on our QR code, and he was like, "White won't copy." So maybe I'm not worried. For right reasons there. Maybe people just know that when they click QR, it will copy. But yeah, just wanted to say, great work, guys. I have to jump out now, but I'll do some testing and rewatch the call tomorrow, and then provide maybe some better feedback. But I agree, this one is probably good to go now, and then we can iron out all the details later.
Cool. I'll talk to Nicholas and Cooks tomorrow and ask them to send a review. Yeah, so maybe you can go on, Dstruk, and maybe we can talk about the things like how we might improve the payments method section and so on.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'm trying to think what would be the better way, because it's like that is one thing, and I think that I see that as I don't know, it kind of feels like a larger discussion. But I guess one thing that I've also noticed, let's see, I'm scrolling down to check out the comments real quick. So I guess I'm wondering for one of the decisions, because I might have missed what ultimately ended up happening. Because there's the NFC stuff, there's the LNURL stuff for top-ups, and let's see, we saw the timer. Woodser talks about text changes, which is perfectly fine. Cases, yeah, I think, and then I guess we also have what I noticed was your most recent post as well, Dennis, was the trying to condense all this stuff and try to have it fit on the page fully, like 100%, which I think is a really valid concern. So I guess with all of these, maybe the NFC stuff would be an easier start, potentially, about how we might want to deal with that kind of thing, and or if at this point, is it just something that we feel could be? Yeah, I guess I'll just start there and see, are there any concerns that we potentially have with it going into this new design, or is it?
Yeah, and maybe in general, I think there are 3 things we should discuss before we can or address before we can even ship checkout v2, and that's NFC, the payment methods, and what was the last one? The plugins, because for sure we'll need to address the plugins part.
Yeah, I agree, and I assume when Nicholas and Kooks do the review, they're likely going to comment on some of that too. So I figured on some level, even if we haven't addressed everything, that they'll probably have their side of feedback and input, and we can kind of figure out what happens from there. Because I think the way that I kind of keep looking at some of these, it's like there are obvious ways that we could format some of the things that we have done. But then I think with all of these kind of things, it's like, does this affect like NFC, for example? Does that change the way a little bit that you might interact with this? Because it's you don't need quite as many things to actually engage with this in the same way that you might, doing the traditional scan method or copying over anything or whatever. So I'm wondering if it makes sense to try to address some of those things in a follow up. But I guess kind of similar to what Pav was expressing, he sees things as do I, where it's like, oh, that could be better, or that could be better. But then, like you're pointing out, it probably makes sense to get it merged and get that foundation because, like, plugins, NFC, payment methods to some extent, they kind of feel like I don't want to say secondary, but they feel like something that we can build on top of, and they blow the scope out of things even more. But I guess if we're communicating in the PR that those are areas that we still need to improve and address, then I think we might be able to get away with doing that because each one of those things you could arguably take a good amount of time to discuss. And then, there are the underlying things of like how to communicate, like pay by NFC and LNURL withdrawal. And it's like, there's a lot to unpack there. And with many cases, and I think what Wutzer's kind of also trying to point out is that like the user doesn't necessarily need to know about that. And I tend to agree. And it's really only in the configuration on the admin side where it's, worth fretting over some of those details. That way we can make that a little bit easier to communicate that when you're using NFC, that's what's going on under the hood. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to kind of organize our thoughts here. Well, so I guess maybe this is an easier way so we can discuss and move forward and get to this first, first PR close. What is the only other things that you feel, Dennis, from your perspective, that need to be addressed before we can tie a bow around this first PR?
Design-wise, I think the payment method section could be improved, but as I said, we'll for sure need at least one more PR, and we can improve design-related things there. This doesn't need to happen in this one. So if there's not a good or viable solution yet, we can still discuss and play around with other options in Figma, and I don't have to implement them for this PR.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably the right move. Honestly, just so we can get a review and get this merged to where we can kind of start working on top of this, because there are options, and kind of as we discussed last time, the multi-step process, like breaking it into an additional step before you get to the actual invoice and the payment details and all that kind of stuff, felt a little bit clunky. So I'm still playing around with how we might be able to incorporate it all in one view, assuming that there are multiple payment methods or more than just the BIP21. But I have a question for the LNURL stuff. Are we only displaying that in the instance of the top of invoices, or
right?
Is this...
Right now, that's the case. Yes.
Okay. But we would still need to account for it in the future in the payment method selector, right?
I'm not really sure, because theoretically, we could also display Lightning as a payment option for the top-up invoices, but from what I've seen, we don't do that. But I need to talk to Cooks and Nicholas about this. But this will for sure come up once they review the PR, because I've marked this section, for it needs to be discussed, and we'll also have to talk about the implementation I did. So in general, right now we have two payment-related edge cases or exclusion cases. So the first one is ln URL, and you already mentioned that. We just display, at least in the new checkout, we just display ln URL in case of top-up invoices. And we also exclude Lightning in the case that the new checkout is used and the BIP21 setting is enabled.
Okay. Yeah, all that makes sense. All right. Well, then I'll wait to see what the conclusion is from that. Because because I just with all of these things where it's like, that striking that balance of like, how much do we present to people so that they know what to do versus like, here's an instance where people can scan and it's like under the general umbrella of like Lightning or the BIP21 stuff, and then we show error messages after versus exposing everything. But I guess with the payment method stuff, we have a little bit more flexibility there. But I think, Nicholas brought up that point that there's, if he himself is also somewhat confused about, the differences and all this other kind of stuff, I imagine, your average user or certainly somebody who, is looking at this from the end user perspective is also going to be like, what the hell is this? Or I've never heard of this kind of thing or whatever.
And then there's also the point of wallet support. So I thought about this today when I basically threw out the Lightning payment method in case BIP21 is enabled, because I'm not really sure whether or not all wallets out there support this yet, and so that might bring up the case where it would be better to show both payment methods, Bitcoin and Lightning, separately or explicitly, so that the user can choose. And in case of Lightning, we just display the QR code for a bold 11.
Yep. But yeah, and those kind of things, it's like, I don't know, it's tough because wallet support is going to be a challenge. And I'm glad that we're pushing things forward and encouraging more wallets to adopt this standard just through the process of doing this. But then, also I think that there's going to be a significant need to continue to improve, error messages or, in this case, I think if I understand you correctly, fallback methods, for an instance where maybe there isn't support for that, but then it's like, oh, okay, well here, now you can choose between one or the other because you may want to now pay on chain, for example.
That's how it was before, and like this right now with the new checkout, this will be exclusive once the store owner enables the BIP21 setting, because then we just display this one QR code and don't offer the choice between Bitcoin and Lightning. But then again, we'll just have to see, and we do our best by offering the new checkout as an opt-in version, and we'll basically have to iterate based on the feedback we get.
Yeah. I think it'll hopefully be encouraging as well, and there'll be more people talking to wallet devs about supporting this and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a gradual change, which is fine. Okay. Well, so then I guess the only other thing, because it sounds like we're going to need to wait a little bit for some feedback there, and we can kind of address some of those issues based on the feedback that we get from Cooks and Nicholas. And the only other thing, and I guess just because it's in the PR, and it may be something again that we want to push to the next PR, which is Woodser's point about trying to get everything in one view to where it's a little bit easier. And I'm wondering with that kind of thing, because I'm also conscious of that, or conscientious of that. But I think to what you pointed out, Dennis, it's like, there are instances where it's like, well, when you have a timer there, and when you have like the fact that there are partial payments and all this other kind of stuff, it does push the QR code down a little bit further. But I think in some cases, like where there's a lot more things there, it doesn't bother me as much. But when you were doing, I'm assuming you probably didn't do any additional tests or anything like on a smaller phone or any of that kind of stuff. Like that's probably way too early for some of that, right?
Yeah, that's why I just an hour ago posted this picture of what it looks like on an iPhone. And as I said, it really depends on a few things here. For instance, are there partial payments? Because then this part will be won't be there. Maybe the timer is there. This one doesn't show individual payment methods because there's only Bitcoin here. So this varies a bit. Nevertheless, I think Wouter has a point here, and we should try to get the QR code above the fold, at least for the devices that are oftentimes used in this point of sale situation. I'm not really sure what types of devices are used for that, and maybe this case I'm showing here isn't even really realistic because it's just in mobile Safari. And in case you use this as a in the point of sale setting, you will most likely add the app to your home screen, and then the address bar isn't displayed so that you might be able to see the QR code. So there are various things, but I think we should do our best to maybe eliminate some more space here at the top, for instance, so that at least for smaller devices, we can potentially do our best to display the QR code in full once you open the page.
Yeah, and I mean, even in this particular thing, I definitely see areas where we can tighten up some of the padding for some of these things. And then it's like, yeah, these are definitely the kind of edge case stuff, but very things, where it's like, okay, here's everything displayed. And I think, yeah, even trying to test it on, or because I know Woodser has one of the point of sale devices from Riga. It'd be awesome if at one point he pulls this up. Well, actually, you have one too, don't you, Dennis? I think.
Yeah, I have one, and I played around with it a bit today. This I'm not sure that this is a good test case because it has a really tall display. It's everything everything will fit in there, but other mobile devices might be way smaller. So
yeah, well, we can use the simulator as well and test it on some of the older machines and figure out what's going on. But yeah, to not get caught up in the details of that, definitely. And I, even as I look at kind of where we're at again, that second follow-up PR, like we're going to get more feedback from the technical side of things, and then yeah, there's definitely areas where we can tighten up some of the things here. And
yeah, I agree. I also think a good approach would be to do our best knowing about this, coming up with an initial version, and then iterate based on user feedback once we've shipped this, because this would delay the shipping of Checkout V2 by a few weeks if we want to address all of the cases out there and we don't even know what they look like.
I agree. It'll be fun because, you know, inevitably people are gonna be like, oh my god, I can't see it, you know, on this and this and this, the QR code's cut off or whatever kind of thing, and hopefully there aren't any catastrophic things that are discovered. But I mean, I would think for most instances where it's like they see it and there aren't a bunch of additional details and stuff, because even with the invoice being paid in full, it's like it's still an instance where it's like, you know, maybe somebody else has partially paid it, but you're likely the one that's interacted with it before somebody else has. So there's probably some degree of you understand, you know, and or have interacted with it before. So, you know, it's not going to be a completely new thing. But yeah, right out of the gate, there's definitely little things we can do to tighten up some of the padding, and like maybe, you know I was pushing for, you know, upping some of the sizes for things, but maybe it ends up being a case where we need to shrink some of the text, or, you know, get that extra little, you know, 10 pixels here and there, like you were suggesting. But yeah, we can definitely address that. I'm not too worried about that at this moment.
Yeah, in general, I think we can also eliminate some space here at the top and gain more than if we reduce the font size of the amount again. There are also some options for doing tweaks once we have nailed the initial version, and then can get to things like responsive CSS, and because also on the desktop, I was wondering, should we display it like it is here, so basically attached to the top, or should we center the whole thing? And but these are more minor questions we can address once we have at least merged this initial PR.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and those are the things in my head that I'm trying to hold back on, like getting caught up in those little details, because I realize at this stage it's not the important thing to focus on. Even though and I'm like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that. Like, what about the, you know, because like when I look at it, it's like everything from like the padding between the logo and the store title to the, you know, the fiat balance to the Bitcoin balance, like all those little things can be tightened up, and, you know, we will probably get another, you know, 20 to 80 potential pixels just in tightening up some of those things. But yeah, no, I agree. And these are all things where it's like, I'm wondering, because I think the next challenge that we're going to have is, and it's probably, even when you talk to Kooks and Nicholas, it's going to be a flood of feedback for things. And, you know, in my head, I'm wondering for all of us to have one visibility, because I think, you know, Wooter's bringing up great stuff in the PR, and it's like, I may try to take on a little bit more of an effort of just like collecting all of the feedback and things that we know we want to address, because they kind of fall into, you know, technical categories. They fall into the design and UX category of things. They just fall into like things that might be nice to have, to just stuff that you're talking about, like, should we center this on the desktop? And, you know, maybe like remove more padding on mobile just to get that extra bit of height or whatever. Or maybe we hide certain things on mobile or something. Even though there's not, we pretty much narrowed it down to the most extreme versions of everything we can, which is great. But there might be more. So I'm wondering, maybe on the original issue, I'll just start kind of collecting these things as like just like checkbox type of stuff, and I'll try to break it into categories just so we're keeping up with all the feedback, because I think that's going to be the challenge of like not only communicating what needs to be done, or what a nice to have would be just the fact that we're aware of it, because, you know, that's just our team alone, let alone, you know, all of the external feedback and things that people are going to comment. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to hear every edge case imaginable. You know, it doesn't look great on, you know, the iPhone 4 or whatever, you know, that somebody's still using, or somebody's point of sale app, you know, cuts off X, Y, and Z thing, or doesn't expand, or some JavaScript issue or something.
But I'm really optimistic that this new version will be way better than the current one, and people will like it. It's
I
just
think so too. No,
a whole lot of stuff to be addressed.
Yep. No, I'm optimistic too. I mean, I feel like the bulk of things are done to a point where it's like, yeah, we can actually start addressing that last 20%. So okay, well, I'll collect all the feedback and I'll put it on the original issue, and just so it exists, even if we figure out a better solution moving forward, at least everything's in one place. That way things don't get lost. Because I also have just random notes in my sketchbook that I need to extract and drop in there. Because then it'll also be on me too, where I have to address some of these things, and kind of what I'm working through right now in Figma. I think, yeah, I want to be able to associate the ask with the actual exploration. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think the only other major one in my head, yeah, when I look at it, is the payment methods stuff. It might be. I'm almost wondering too. It's like, I know we've it wasn't since 1.4 that we had been doing kind of like weekly design calls, but like I feel like in my head right now, maybe it might even make sense to do some kind of intermittent call, or like maybe next week or something like that, because I'll probably have more, knowing kind of where we're at. But if not, we can wait for another 2 weeks, and I can obviously drop mocks and do all that kind of stuff. But I feel like
I'd say we can stay on the regular schedule, because I assume that most of the time next week will be taken up by addressing the feedback for this PR and doing minor things I still have on my list. So not that much will happen in terms of changes, at least
Cool.
design-wise. So I'd be happy to talk in 2 weeks.
Cool. Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. Because yeah, I've got a few things to address, and I can continue to drop those in the UI UX channel, or just to you directly. And yeah, we'll work through some of those kind of things. Because yeah, that's what I was worried about. I was like, I could be dumping a bunch of things on you, but it might be a lot. And I think, yeah, there will probably be some stuff to work through once you actually get more technical feedback, because we're not going to be as harsh of a judge in that respect. Potentially, I don't know. They may look at this and feel like it's perfect.
Maybe they say, well, fuck it. There are so many changes in here. We're not going to review this in detail. So YOLO and ship it.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, it's an opt-in feature.
No, I'll do my best to outline the important areas of changes and what still needs to be addressed and discussed and so on tomorrow. So I marked this PR as ready for review, but I'll leave some more comments on it tomorrow, and will then notify Nicholas and Cooks about it.
Cool. And yeah, I'll copy over all the feedback that we've gotten from the PRs and the issue and all that kind of stuff. Make sure we're keeping that in sync. I guess, I mean, we don't have that much time left, but the only other thing that I think that we could address a little bit was like the print version of some of the receipt stuff. But I'm also wondering if like maybe we want to push that off until our next call, and like we'll I guess I'll ask technical questions, because I could try to put together mocks based on what we have, or what we're currently doing with the tables. Because I mean, conceptually, I definitely agree that like using tables and all that kind of stuff in that view, we could definitely improve, and we can do some basic formatting. Because I don't think with a lot of the stuff that's printed, it needs to be like, we can make it look pretty with pretty minimal effort. So I don't know, I just don't think it'll be that heavy of a lift, in terms of priority. It's a lot lower than everything that we're currently working on. But I didn't know if you had any thoughts or any concerns going into that, or if that's just a situation of like, we just need something for it to look like, and then we'll make it work.
I don't know whether or not you've looked at the form builder PR yet, but for me, this one would be the next bigger thing that needs merging, so that I can continue with part 2 of the checkout v2 for the form integration. So maybe we can take a few minutes so that I can guide you through this one. And yeah, I've reviewed it already technically. I've also updated the UI to with some cleanups, but let me build this one and so that we can take a look at what Cooks came up with.
Yeah, that'd be helpful because no, I haven't checked this out. I was waiting until it was no longer a draft, but I figured it might make sense, and or maybe in one of our calls we would see. It's basically once this is in a good place or gets merged, it would show up in the check invoice side of things. It'd be easier for me to hope maybe give feedback at that point, but okay.
So UI wise, there's not that much to it. So once more, this is more of a technical topic. Nevertheless, it's surfaced in the UI in the store settings. So the general idea is that the store owner will be able to define several forms, and they get a configuration page to right now configure the form to request user information using JSON. I'll show you in a second. So once you go to store settings and the page loads, you get this forms view here, and here you have the option to create a new form. As I said, there might be several of them, and right now we have templates for a simple email form, and this is what the config for that looks like. not sure people will actually use it right now. It's just the very technical foundation for what we'll enhance with a way better form builder. But this PR lays the foundation, and there's already a template for the full address form. And as we are intending to use these two options for the initial version of Checkout v2, it would be very helpful to get his PR into master as well, so that I can build the stuff based on this part. But in general, I think UI wise, that's basically it. You have the option to, as I said, create and manage multiple forms, and then the standard CRUD behavior of adding, removing, and changing those.
Does Vue just bring you back to that JSON editor?
No, that's a preview.
Oh, okay.
So this
nice. All right.
is the email form, and I think I changed the full address form to contain only the email address. So let's change it to full address again and reload the preview, and this is what you get in that case.
Wow. All right. Yeah. No. No. It's always funny to watch the incremental. I see where it's going, and I see where we're headed. It's just always funny when it's like, this is where it starts, because you need that metadata, you need that structure, and then over time we add a nice polished UI on top of everything like that. So yeah, I can already hear Kooks laughing at me as I say those things. Cool. Well, no, this is great. I think this is a perfect start, and I think a lot of people will be very appreciative and happy to have this at their disposal. And then as we we follow up and integrate it a little bit more deeply with things and make it a more digestible piece of UI for, things like, the point of sale and the crowdfund and all that other kind of stuff. I think that, people will be really happy about this. But yeah, that's incredible. That's awesome work.
And the idea is once everything's neatly and tightly integrated, that those forms that you create here will be available in addition to the generic ones I showed you on the checkout appearance. Once you enable the new checkout, where you have this drop down to request user data, and then you can select one of those as well.
Absolutely. No, don't worry. I'm I'm already there. I'm just trying to be patient because I know that it's a tremendous amount of work to build all these things, and it's exciting to see it. Well, cool. I think at this stage, things are moving along. Obviously there's more things that we can keep doing in the meantime. But yeah, I think this will probably go into the technical review side of things, and we'll start catching more edge cases and talking through more things. But I think, keeping the 2 week for the next call is probably the right move. But I don't know. It's like taking a moment to appreciate all the work that has been done and like where we are, because it feels like, there's so much more to do. Certainly when I look at this, but then I also have to appreciate that this is a huge lift, and I think that it's just setting us up to do even more cool stuff. And then I remind myself that we've come a long way already. And as usual, I'm blown away, man. Really, it's so awesome to see all this come to life.
It's happening.
It's happening. No, seriously, it is. It is. Well, 3 of us sit in a call. Well, let's see. It kind of sounds like we just need to kind of keep chugging along on all this stuff. And I'll drop more things in Mattermost and on the issues and stuff like that for designs and things like that. But yeah, I think doing that in a follow-up PR, and I might poke around on this a little bit more. I didn't realize this PR was as far along as it was, because it's still marked as a draft. But I clearly need to pull this down and play around with it a bit more. All right. Well, I don't want to meander too much. We're pretty much right at the end here. But this is awesome. I'm incredibly excited about all this, and knowing that it's only going to get better too. And seeing all the I think one of the things that I'm also very happy about is the fact that even though Nicholas had brought up the issue about the pay join stuff and some of the wallet settings and things, I do feel like as we start to build more, it's becoming a little bit more clear where certain things should live. And even though right now, we're just adding another tab for forms, for example, over time that will become more integrated in this view. So it just becomes about how do we consolidate and encapsulate certain features within this view, and they're in a clear place for people to set up and configure these things, as opposed to before it might have been more of a challenge. So I don't know. There's a lot of wins that I see as we kind of start to step through this stuff.
And I don't know whether or not you've seen it yet, but he earlier today brought up this whole topic of where should the payment method settings live, and he was confused that they were shown in the settings for the particular payment method instead of having them in the store settings. And if you remember our conversation from half a year ago, he brought up exactly all the points that we talked about then.
Yep.
And we I think a few calls ago, we also had this discussion that once we finish checkout V2, we might get back to address those and clean things up, basically.
Yep. No, I agree. I've been saying, Dennis, we need to clone you, man. It's the thing where I was more capable in this regard to be able to help out here. But no, don't worry. It will get addressed. Like I said, it's considering the progress with all these
for
things.
sure. And oftentimes it's things also take time, and we for instance, with this topic, we tried out something, now see that this might not be the perfect fit. And yeah, we've basically learned a few things since we implemented it, and so it's not a problem that that we don't get to everything immediately, but yeah, we also take our time and learn.
Indeed. See, it's getting better every single day. But all right, well, as usual, great work, and
Same.
I guess call it a day, and enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we will talk again in a few weeks.
Sounds good.
Have a good night, guys. Have a nice day for you, Dstruk.
It's just getting started, but all right, guys. Well, cheers, and we'll talk soon.
Cheers, Bas. Thanks.
For too long, we've relied on trusted third parties to process digital payments. The world is changing, and so are your customers. As cash payments decrease, digital payments become the standard. But existing apps charge transaction fees and lack privacy. BTCPay is a Bitcoin payment platform. It gives control over your business back to you, helping people achieve financial freedom with donations, payments, and more. Help your family and onboard your friends. Use BTCPay to host multiple stores and become a payment platform of your own. While the world changes around you, stay in control of your finances. It's simple to use, censorship resistant, and completely free. This is more than a payment platform. It's transforming digital payments as fast as the world around us.